lens I should get. We ready?
Yep.
All right, here we go. And 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Pixel Show. Today, we're going to do an episode of What Lens Should I Get? We are going to talk about the 24 1.4 G Master Prime. This is a relatively new lens for Sony, but it's a really great wide prime. It's super lightweight, easy to travel with, and it takes some amazing images. So before we get in there, I just want to draw your attention to some of the other episodes. The previous episode of What Lens Should I Get is about the 24 to 105. There's one up there about the 135 1.8. And also the last one we did is also about the 24 1.4, but we're showing you how you can use that as a macro. And I'm going to show you a few images from that. And of course, some of our other shows, Power of Simple, etc. Again, this is not going to be a review. I'm going to show you images that I've taken with the lens, how I use it, how you could use it. But we are going to be a little bit geeky, give you some facts. So let's geek out a little bit. So the first thing is obviously the 24 1.4, great for video and stills, but straight off the Sony website, these fancy words, cutting edge technology achieves refined G Master performance with consistently high resolution and soft natural bokeh, even at the widest aperture at f1.4. It's really a beautiful lens. You're going to see. Let's look at the images. It has controls on it that you'd expect from a G Master lens, which really makes it fun and easy to shoot. Of course, you have you can turn the autofocus on and off on the lens, which is super helpful because I shoot in manual a lot, and I can just flip it on or off if I want. So if I'm shooting autofocus, but I want to go to manual and focus myself and focus peaking, I can do that. It has focus hold button, which you can program pretty much anything in the custom menu that you want to that. A lot of the times, like on my telephoto lenses, I'll put the Super 135 mode so I can make it actually zoom in a little bit. So for instance, I recently got the 400-2.8, and then if I push that button, then it makes it even tighter, which is great sometimes shooting sports and I want to zoom in on the outfield or whatever. If you want to put eye autofocus, whatever it is you want, you can program to that button, as well as it has the aperture click switch, which allows you to click the aperture because the aperture rings right on there and you can hear it click, or it can be smooth, maybe for when you're using it for video. So I really love those features on the lenses. And another important factor is the filter diameter. It's a 67 millimeter. You can see it's 92.44 millimeters long by 7.44 millimeters high. But filter diameter is always important because, again, if you're going to spend this much money on a lens, if you're going to spend $1,200, $1,300 what this lens costs, and it's a G Master lens, you want to respect it. I always put UV filters on the front of my lenses, and I use breakthrough technology filters because it's great quality glass. They're a little bit more expensive, but if you're going to spend money on a lens, you want quality glass. You don't want to put a cheap filter on an expensive lens because then you're not utilizing the quality of the lens. As well as if you want a neutral density filter. So that is the filter diameter for this lens. So moving on, this lens is really sharp corner to corner. It's crystal clear, which is my somewhat pun for this image. But this is ice fog that I shot this winter on a fence. Obviously you can see that. But this lens is amazingly sharp from edge to edge. You can see the crystals, really beautiful. I'm really loving this lens so far. And I've had it for probably 8-9 months now. So here's an example of using the lens as almost a macro. So if you go watch that other episode I mentioned at the top of the show about the 24, like using it as a close-up or a macro lens. So this is an image that from that show. But most people will use a wide lens, like the shot on your left, and there's a wide. But if you look within that shot, there is a Japanese maple. So we went in there really close and focused. This lens will focus about 9 inches. So it's 9 inches from the sensor. It's about 5 inches from the front of the lens, but you can get really close. And you can use this lens not only as a wide, but you can use it for close-up things. If you were shooting food, it's really something that you're shooting close, but you want to show more of the background. Now, I used this at a wedding, and this is one of the first weddings that I had taken the lens to. And you can use it for, I'm going to show you 3 images that I use it for. So this is a portrait, obviously, of the groom. I sat him up in the loft of the church. I shot it at 1.4, wide open, because I wanted to show the church in the background. It was such a beautiful church. So I did a portrait of him up there. It's lit with a strobe. So he is lit, but again, 1.4 in the background. So it goes nice and soft out of focus. And now this image is kind of what I referred to using it as a macro. In this particular wedding, I forgot my macro lens and I was like, oh crud, what am I gonna do? And I was like, well, I'm gonna use the wide because I know you can focus it close. So this was the first time I tried this. And I shot a ring shot with a wide lens, which is probably something most people don't think about. There's also another image, if you go back and watch that other episode, really better than this one, but this image I liked as well. So I put it on top of the makeup brushes, focused right on the rings. Everything else goes nice, softly out of focus. And then here, I used it for the recessional, for them walking down the aisle. 3 different uses of one lens at the wedding. And of course, you can use it for many things. But again, this is shot at 1.4, wide open. I wanted to focus on the bride and groom and have the foreground and the background go out of focus. But I want to see the people in the church and in the aisle. I want to see their expressions and the emotion that's going on here. Here you don't see their faces, but you do get this great high five of the flower girl. So this was an awesome picture. The other thing you don't see here is cell phones. How many of you that shoot weddings hate people that have cell phones in front of their faces? So this is a modern day image with no cell phones because I ask my brides to ask their guests not to have them during the ceremony. Something you could do too. Okay, so moving on. So recently I went on a little trip. I got back on July 3rd, just in time for 4th of July so I could be home with my own family. But I went to Mackinac Island, Michigan. And if you don't know where that is, it's at the top of Lake Michigan and the top of Huron. It's where Michigan and Huron kind of touch. It's a tiny little island right there, so you can see that on the map. It was such an amazing place. I had never been there before. Kind of went here on a work assignment. Here's just a few of the images to give you a little collage quickly of some of the ones I shot. I'm going to share the ones with you that I shot with the 24-1.4. So the first image was taken at a restaurant called The Woods, which is on the island, and it's sort of associated with the Grand Hotel, which is the beautiful hotel on Mackinac Island. And this restaurant has this 1-lane bowling alley, which was just amazing. And it used to be the kids' playhouse back in the 1800s. The guy that built the hotel built this restaurant for his kids' playhouse, and now, well, he built the playhouse and now it's a restaurant. But when I was waiting to take pictures, this guy in front of me was bowling, and so I shot this cool picture. I really wanted it in black and white, although the walls are green and it's really cool. But I also shot it at a 15th of a second because I wanted a little movement in it. I wanted to show him bowling and the ball moving, and I think I couldn't have asked for a better image with the 1 or 2 that I took. So like I say with photography, sometimes it's a little bit of luck and a little bit of skill, and it comes together nicely. So the next image here, one of the things I did is I went into this butterfly house on the island. And again, perfect, using the 24mm wide lens as a macro. So it really shows the detail and the intricacy of the colors of the butterfly. This was one of the most beautiful butterflies. When his wings open up, the inside, he's like this fluorescent blue. It's really beautiful. So just a great way to like get close to him, focus on him really closely, but still incorporate a little bit of the background and include, of course, all of the butterfly. This image taken, so while I was there was a bicycle club from Michigan, and they, as you see, rode the old-fashioned big bikes. Now the island has an 8.3-mile road that goes around it, and these guys were there as a club, but a lot of these guys were trying to accomplish, I think what they call like a centurion, or where they basically go 100 miles on these bikes in one day. Yes, they took breaks, but I sort of positioned myself in a place where I wanted to show the background. I picked my background and I sat there and I waited. And yes, if you're noticing the dust or dirt in the street, it is horse poop, because there's no cars allowed on the island, which is another really cool thing about it. I kind of say that Mackinac Island is like Disneyland without the rides. So no cars, everyone rides bikes. It's absolutely like the most magical place. So anyway, but I camped out here looking to catch, the two lighthouses in the background right as he passed this specific point. So this is actually just a slight variation, a slight turn from where I was. I crossed the street and I wanted to show this is the direction that he came from. But you can see the horse and carriage on your right. On the left, you can see the Mackinac Island Bridge, as well as one of the ferries that brings the people to and from the island. But it's a great environmental landscape lens that you can use. Again, this is shot at 2.8. I wanted a little bit of depth of field to show the background, but still beautiful, sharp. The horses are sharp, the boat's sharp. It's really becoming one of my favorite lenses when I need a wide. Here's another one, and looking at one of the little buoy lighthouses coming in, this little girl walking along the shore. It was just a great moment. This is a beautiful tree. I'm not sure what kind of tree this is. I had great clouds. This is at 4.5 because I wanted to make sure that I got some, saturation in the clouds. It's a 50 ISO. It's about 3:40 in the afternoon, but of course it was cloudy, so it was kind of a perfect light to take a shot like this. Now this image was taken in Wisconsin. Of course, as I made my way home after going to Mackinac, I had to stop and sleep because it's kind of a long drive. And this is one morning I got up at 7:30 in the morning to take pictures, and it was foggy. And I saw this really, really cool pier, and I saw the texture in it, and I knew right away, oh, this image has to be black and white. Now I chose to shoot this pretty much wide open. It's at 2.2 is the aperture, because I wanted to show the texture and the pier, of course, but I did want, with the fog, I did want a little bit to go out of focus. And when I made this black and white, I was like, yep, that's exactly what I envisioned. But this is probably one of my favorite images from that trip. Okay, this image. So along the way, especially when I drove up to Mackinac, I saw all these abandoned hotels. There was many of these little just, pull up to the room hotels. And I was like, oh, I should get out and take pictures of them. So when I was leaving, I was driving, and again, I saw one and I was reminded, I passed one and I was like, oh, I should take that picture. And so anyway, I finally stopped at this one, and this is just one image of maybe the 10 or 15 that I took, but one of my favorites. Again, you see the detail in the flowers while letting the background go out of focus, and the abandoned hotel. So here's one more from that trip, and a tip from the field. Really, what I learned, which I've taught myself many times before, but again, to reiterate it, and I have to keep telling myself that, is you have to listen to that little voice inside and shoot what you want. So I drove past two of these and I didn't stop. And after stopping and shooting this hotel, catching probably 10, 15 images, this being one of my favorites that I liked, I was like, wow, I really should have stopped at the other ones. And what was stopping me? Just me, I think, being a guy and oh, I got to get to my destination, which really I was out on a leisurely destination. I really didn't have a big time constraint. I could stop and do what I wanted, but I kept driving. Next time I do this, the one thing that I learned is listen to that voice, stop. I would have been able to shoot 3 or at least 4 of these abandoned motels, and I would have gotten probably, I could have done a whole show on just abandoned motels. So next time I'm out on the road, if I go up that way, I'm going to do that again. But I really like this image. If you look at even some of the power of simples, you have the matching lines of the X on the wall behind, you have the texture, but then there's an X on the floor. If you look what the can's sitting on, I didn't move anything. I didn't touch it. I just walked up and shot it. And again, I put the 24 up close to it. So I have the beautiful texture and colors of the gas can or the oil can, as well as the texture on the walls behind, and then the beautiful light from it. So the tip is get out there and shoot what you want when you want. Well, That'll do it for another episode. And again, as always, we appreciate you watching. Please leave your comments. Let us know what you like, what you'd like to see. Of course, you're watching it here, so we are the Pixel Show YT YouTube. We are the Pixel Show for Instagram, at the Pixel Show YT for Twitter. We have a Facebook page and a website. So thank you for watching. We appreciate you being here. Like, love. If you like what you see, we're going to produce a lot more content here in the future. I'm Robert Evans, and thanks again for watching the Pixel Show.